Good morning. I am Robert Kelly. I'm one of the pastors here at the church, and you are still asleep. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. I'm getting a little bit there. There is regular coffee in the back. Even the decaf is actually regular, just in case it's a sleepy morning, and no, I'm just kidding. It really is decaf. But so welcome. We're so glad that you have come out to be a part of our worship time this morning. Some of you know me very well. We've been, around and through a lot together, and many of you don't. You actually, you're either newer to the church or you've only been coming a few months. You haven't had a chance yet to get to kind of know me a little bit. And this happened recently. I was talking to someone, and I had said something to them, and they realized there's a whole other part of me that they don't even know because, what they know of me is, pretty much happens here, on a Sunday morning. And and the truth of the matter is I'm actually a very happy-go-lucky sort of a guy. I'm a generally optimistic sort. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have, an edge and a bite and I can really be a jerk sometimes. But, in fact, all of those things are true, which surprises some people because, they think mostly, they're like, oh, he seems like a nice enough guy. And I think I'm a nice enough guy. I'm also a bit of a jerk. But that's not actually the point for this morning. That's actually just a tangent. But one of the things is I am an optimistic sort. And there's different kinds of people. People tend to be a little more pessimistic, and some tend to be a little bit more optimistic. Well, I tend to be an optimistic sort of guy, and it's just me. I sort of always think things are going to go well, and this is why we didn't cancel the beach baptism yet, we are now, but because I'm like, no, it's going to clear up, it's going to clear up, it's going to clear up, and of course it did. But, I'm sort of like this, and, my happiness is sort of stable in that way. I try not to let a lot of circumstances get me down. I try to look for the best in a situation. Now, here's the thing. If Beacon Church doesn't do well, I don't do well. I am not happy. When we're hitting a rough patch, when things are getting a little bit tough, when we're not as effective in our ministries, when things aren't going up and to the right, I don't do so well. I actually get very frustrated. I even start to flirt with a little bit of anxiety and maybe even a touch of depressed days, things I'm not used to. I just start looking around, I'm like, what's going on? I've actually gone so far as to tell some of the leaders that if we go for a long patch of time, like a year or two, and things aren't going well, not only will you have to find someone who can actually do this, because obviously I can't, but I want to jump off a bridge. It's just sort of this is what and I'm only half joking about. Only half of that is the joke, because I'm tied up. You see, if this isn't going well for me, if we are not seeing people grow in faith, if we're not reaching people who are far from God, and so one thing, we hit a tough patch, and all of a sudden, you know what I got to do? I got to be smarter. I got to work harder. I got to study more diligently. I've got to, be more creative. I've got to connect more with people, and I just throw more at it. Which, of course, some of you are saying, good. That's a good thing to do. And of course, yes, it is a good thing to do whenever you want to make things better. You want to do it and work hard and all of that. And even in that, there's something therapeutic for me to do. And yet, if I have to pick between walking with my God and the success of Beacon Church, it's a hard choice for me. I really want it to work. I really want things to go well here. And some of you know what this is like because you've had situations in your life, you've had things come up that if you had to pick between God and it's actually a hard choice. Now, it doesn't sound like it. Of course, of course I would pick God, but that's just giving me the right answer. Because if you really examine your heart, you recognize that these tensions are far more prevalent. They're far more involved than we might want to give voice to. You didn't get into that club you wanted to. And suddenly, you're angry about this. You've had a breakdown of what you expected and what you thought was right. If you are a single adult and you're hoping for that spouse, and if you don't get it, how does God fit into this equation? Will you still love him, honor him, obey him, look to him, be happy with what he has given you? Or will you say, I needed better. Maybe I didn't even deserve it, but I wanted it, and you didn't come through. Maybe you're a young married couple and you have wanted a child for a long time, and now you're starting to find out that might not happen. For one reason or another, God created you in such a way or allowed something to happen to you so that you don't ever see that child. Will you pick God or that child? Who will stand in the center of your heart? See, we begin to wrestle with these more drastic situations, but we actually see them in every area of our lives. You're a career person. You're loving what you're doing. You're going after your job, and you're good at it. So, of course, this is something that would please God. And so since it would please God, he has to be behind it and support you in it so that you can get a good job and save for your future and your retirement, and things can go well. Because that's the way it ought to be. And what happens when those dreams begin to crumble? They begin to shatter. What sits at the center of our hearts? For me, it's a very difficult journey inward as I start to examine what it is that captures my heart fully and completely. When I often see that it isn't God himself, it isn't my walk with him, it isn't my relationship with him, it becomes a very frustrating and even discouraging realization. But the scriptures are fairly clear about this. God must shatter our lesser dreams of happiness. He must shatter our lesser dreams of happiness if we are going to be drawn into greater dreams of being in his presence. He has to. I'm not saying he will simply occasionally do it for a few of us. I'm saying he must shatter our lesser dreams in order to move us into our greater dreams. I owe a lot of the topic here for this morning to this book by that same name, Shattered Dreams by Larry Crabb. It's a very challenging read. And this is what the nation of Israel had been facing in the time that we've been reading our readings for this week. This is what the nation of Israel has been facing. Their dreams are being shattered. They're being just broken apart. And now they have to come to a decision. Where will they be with God? Who will they be in God's presence now that their dreams are being shattered? And he begins Jeremiah. We're going to be looking in Jeremiah 24. You can actually grab one of the Bibles there in front of you if you didn't bring your own. And Jeremiah is given a vision. It's a vision about figs. Who here likes figs? You guys like figs? We have some fig lovers here. Fresh figs. I'm not talking about fig Newtons. Everybody likes fig. Anybody here, you got a fig? Here you go. You want a fig? Fresh fig? Come on. Take a fresh fig. There's a little napkin for you, too, because they are a little bit messy. I got the green ones and the purple ones, and these are really good. The setting, I saw another hand. There's some other fresh fig lovers here. Did I see another hand? You like a fresh fig? They're really good. I mean, these are like, these are good figs. See, I did not grow these figs, even though. so you got a little here. I love the figs. Now, here's the background of this story, of course. Figs are an amazing delicacy in many ways. They're a delight. Lots of people love figs. You guys really got to. These are real and fresh, and, I love them. So, and I picked all of the best ones out of the pack. So, the fig, you got to remember the setting here a little bit. Jeremiah is about to be given this vision about these good figs and these bad figs. And while he's talking about it, know what else, really? If you haven't tried a fig, this is your opportunity. Like a nice no? It's just because you're shy? All right, can I say? No, all right. So the fresh figs, he's talking about this picture of figs, and here's the thing that's going on. The idea of figs, abundance, productivity, all that thing, we love that idea. But in the nation of Israel at the time, they were facing one of the most difficult and challenging circumstances they've ever imagined possible. They had decided, they had been brought into this holy land, they had been given this amazing gift by God, they had been told that they are the chosen people. And they're the chosen people. And those chosen people were going to be a light to this world. The Messiah was going to come through them and bless every nation, every tribe, every tongue. They had these grand and powerful dreams. And yet, the northern kingdoms, the northern tribes had already been decimated, destroyed by the Assyrian Empire. And now the southern tribes, Judah and Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem, were being threatened, God's own temple, because Nebuchadnezzar was coming down, the nation of Babylon. He was being drawn down to conquer their land. God says, it's a sure thing. It's going to happen. All of your dreams, all of your futures will be shattered. Shattered. Everything you had hoped for, everything you had longed for is now over. Look at chapter 24, starting in verse 1. After Jehoiakim, son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, because that's not confusing enough, king of Judah, and the officials, the craftsmen and the artisans of Judah were carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. The Lord showed me 2 baskets of figs placed in front of the temple of the Lord. One basket had very good figs, like the ones I just handed out, like those that ripen early. The other basket had very poor figs, so bad they could not be eaten. Then the Lord asked me, "What do you see, Jeremiah?" "Figs," I answered. "The good ones are very good, but the poor ones are so bad that they cannot be eaten." You see, they no longer pursued God. If you had been deported, your whole life would now change. You'd be among a foreign nation, foreign language, in a place not your home, far away from all the things you had grown to love. If you stayed in the land, if you weren't deported, then you were going to be there with all of the best of the land having been deported, all of the best of the people having been deported. Many of your family members were already gone. The people you had grown to love and trust, the ones who with wisdom guided your communities, they're gone. See, it doesn't matter whether you're deported or not. Your dreams are over. You can imagine what this would be like, such scary times to experience. You know, if you were an Israelite in that time, just think about what your life might have been like. You know, maybe you were a very successful farmer, and you had just been working really, really hard. So hard that you had purchased a whole slew of new animals, and you were, because of how wise you had been and how much you had saved over the course of a decade, working on the legacy your parents had left you, you had collected a whole new variety of animals, and great animals, and this was going to be a fantastic year. And now the Babylonian troops are slaughtering them and eating them after having invaded your city. Gone. Just like that. You are a young man, and you've recently fallen in love with a beautiful Israeli girl right down, around in your own town, and they sort of knew that you two were going to be set up. And she's been deported. Budding love. Just gone. Where's that dream? It's over. You'll never see her again. See, this is time and again shattered dreams. Maybe you decided that you were going to diversify, and so you had just been importing some unusual seeds. You were going to create a commodity, a new commodity for you were respected in the community. You had a successful business, and you had just dedicated a vast portion of your fields to a brand new and exotic type of grain or fruit or something. Very exciting time for you. You're progressing. You're doing well. Now it's burned to the ground. All the seeds destroyed, all your overflow, all your inventory gone. All of the bounty that you had saved for your children and your children's children wiped out. All the memories, the hopes that you had had. Your great-great-great-grandfather sat on that stream, and he taught your great-great-grandfather lessons on his knee and told him about life and about God and about the promise that they had been given. And you hoped one day you would do the same with your son. He would sit on your knee and right there at that stream, and you would praise God and thank him for all of his good things. And that dream is gone. It's not hard to begin to see ourselves in this situation. When things begin to deteriorate, they begin to get shattered. Our lesser dreams are falling apart. And here's some of the brutality of it. Look at verse 4. Then the word of the Lord came to me. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Like these good figs, I regard as good the exiles from Judah, whom I sent away from this place to the land of the Babylonians. I sent away. This hadn't spun out of control. All of those shattered dreams, God did it. God did it. I sent them away. I brought Nebuchadnezzar here. Your dreams are shattered because God had been working against those dreams. Against them. You can imagine how discouraging this would be. It would be one thing if God said, I don't know what happened. Nebuchadnezzar, he took me by surprise. He came down here. He destroyed it. I couldn't stop him. It was too late. I'll try to make some good out of it. We would actually feel better about that at first. Before we'd thought it through, we would feel better about that. We'd be like, well, at least God isn't against me. But when we start to think that God has done this thing, when he has shattered these dreams, will we still be able to now trust in him? Take a look at verse 6. He's talking about the good figs now. My eyes will watch over them for their good, and I will bring them back to this land. I will build them up and not tear them down. I will plant them and not uproot them. I will give them a heart to know me, that I am the Lord. They will be my people, and I will be their God, and they will return to me with all their heart. See, these shattered dreams are making way for greater dreams. They're making way for greater dreams where we can rest and trust and still hope. The question, of course, becomes, will we? Because it's not the natural response. Take a look at verse 8. But like the poor figs, which are so bad they cannot be eaten, says the Lord, so will I deal with Zedekiah, king of Judah, his officials, and the survivors from Jerusalem, whether they remain in this land or live in Egypt. It's kind of a neat little interesting point there. Not neat, but interesting in some way. Live in Egypt. I will make, verse 9, I will make them a bore and an offense to all the kingdoms of the earth, a reproach and a byword, an object of ridicule and cursing. Wherever I banish them, I will send the sword, famine, and plague against them until they are destroyed from the land I gave to them and their fathers. See, these bad figs, they refuse to accept that God is tearing down their lesser dreams. They refuse to accept it. They cling with all desperation to the lesser dreams. That might be one of the ways to help understand who these bad figs are. They cling with desperation to the lesser dreams. You know, some things are better than others in this world and in the world to come. There's a story about two old friends, a rabbi and a priest. And of course, you know, whenever they show up in the same story, you got to suspect it. But so a rabbi and a priest, they're old friends, and they show up at a picnic. And they're catching up a little bit. They're having some fun time. The kids, you know, are playing, families are everywhere. And they're sitting down to enjoy this great meal. Well, the priest starts kind of ribbing his rabbi friend. He's like, oh my goodness, have you tried this pork? You have got to try it. There are some amazing pork chops here. I just had a hamburger with bacon. Did you try that hamburger with bacon? The rabbi's just shaking his head, and the priest is like, you got to just try this. I know it's against your religion to eat, pork. It's unclean and stuff like that. But I got to tell you, everything is better with bacon. It just is. Everything is better. Why don't you just give it a try? Tell me that. When will you try just a little bit of it? When will you try just a little bit of bacon? The rabbi, thinks for a moment and then smiles, and he says, well, I think I'll try it at your wedding. Because some things are better than bacon. Right, hon? It's so... There are some things, and when you cling to your lesser dreams, you actually can't. You don't have the capacity to grip onto the greater dreams. Some things, lesser dreams, need to break down. They need to be torn away from us. They may not always look like lesser dreams to us. They may not always look like they are not the best for us. We may be convinced of what is better for us. But if we know that there is a good God who is ultimately powerful, then what he is doing in removing these lesser dreams can only be considered good. Now, some will reject God outright at that point. These are the ones I think that went to Egypt. I think they looked at the whole thing. They're like, no promised land, no chosen people, no great plan here. I'm out of here. Goodbye. I'm heading back to Egypt. I'm going to be away. I'm going to be protected by Egypt. I'm going to be away from Nebuchadnezzar, and I'm going to start my life over. I'm going to, without God, without his plan for my life, that's where I'm heading. I'm going to Egypt. Very easy for us to do is to reject God outright when he doesn't give us what we want. We, of course, at this point have entered into a fight with God, and everyone does. Good figs and bad figs. We enter into a fight with God because we're wrestling with this idea of him destroying our lesser dreams. Now, other bad figs are interesting. They won't just abandon God because they just know somehow that isn't the right move. What they will often do, though, is they will believe that this can't possibly be true. That it's not happening. There's no possible way that God would ever do such a thing as this. Tamper with my happiness. How dare he? He couldn't. It's not possible. I don't have to challenge him on it. It's not possible. He's a good God. He loves me. Therefore, he is not tampering with my happiness. There's a story, a woman was, she was a blind woman who had a guide dog and big, beautiful golden retriever. And this man said that he was on his walk for the morning, and he had seen this whole exchange take place. And as he understands it, they're walking down a sidewalk, probably a very familiar walk for them. And the dog, and in this place, the sidewalk goes straight, but there's a car parked right on the curb. You know how cars pull in halfway, but now the sidewalk is blocked. No big deal if you know that, if you see it, you can walk around it. But if you're blind, you don't know that there's a car there. It's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be an open sidewalk. Well, the dog, of course, is there, so it's all right, because the dog will slow down and stop and not let this woman bump into the car. But for some reason, this particular day, she just wasn't trusting the dog. Maybe she had something else on her mind. She was frustrated, and so she kind of nudges him forward, and he just refuses. So he presses his body up against hers and tries to push her up and around the car. But she knows there's nothing supposed to be here. It's open sidewalk. She's walked this a dozen times. She knows that the dog must be wrong. And so, she kind of nudges him forward, and he pushes again, and they go back and forth with this a few times. Finally, she just kicks right through the dog and just pushes him out of the way and smacks right into the car. With clarity now, she realizes what's been going on. She sees it all of a sudden, all at once, and crystal clear. And so she just breaks down. She falls to her knees. She hugs the dog. She gives him a kiss, just saying she's sorry. And she's just broken up over what had just happened, because she couldn't trust that what the dog was doing was good. You can't see it sometimes. And so what we end up doing is we cling to all of these lesser dreams because we simply do not believe that God in any way could be tampering with our happiness. He's messing around with it. He's tampering with it, and it just isn't right. It isn't good. It must be some mistake. There must be something wrong here. So what we do is we go about trying to rebuild our lesser dreams on the rubble that is now there, that has been broken down. And not only that, we start to interpret the things around us to our favor. You can imagine being one of those who haven't been deported, and you would be able to very quickly say, wow, I guess I wasn't deported. That must mean I'm special. I'm not like all of those that God ripped out of this land. They don't see. See, sometimes bad figs think they're the good figs. They miss it. In fact, Christians become very judgmental at this point. Now Christians can start to say, wow, God's blessing is on my life, probably because I am in some way better. I'm more worthy. I'm here in the land and I'm able to still be happy. I'm still able to do my things. But those other people, they must have been more sinful, more broken, more whatever. God must have been really unhappy with them because he deported them. They're gone. So we start to interpret our scenario in such a way as to put us at the center of things again. Now, wow, God did protect me. God is good. Now I get to rebuild these lesser dreams that have been shattered. Meanwhile, God's doing his work in the exiles with those who have been deported. And in arrogance, we start to become overly confident that there must be some good thing about us. When early in the life of Beacon, we were given this building. It was a gift. Now, we had a lot of church planting friends that were not given buildings, as you could imagine. It was amazing. It was an incredible gift. And it took a conscious effort for us not to think to ourselves, wow, we must have it going. You could imagine how easy it would be to say, we must be somewhat special. God gave us this building, and he's not giving it to every church planting team out there. He must really like us. He's pretty lucky to have us on the team. You see the futility and the foolishness of this. You might also be able to argue God gave it to you because we were so stupid that it would be the only way that we would ever be able to have any sort of hope at survival, because we just couldn't pull it together. There's a lot of ways to interpret the things that happen around us. The bad figs they can become judgmental, and they can also start to really see with a desperate sort of frenetic energy, trying to get busy pursuing these lesser dreams. The goal becomes to make life work better so that we can feel better. And if that's the center at your heart, if that goal is the center of your heart, then you are at odds with what God is trying to do. If you're trying to make your life work better so you can feel better, I don't want to have too much frustration. I don't want to have too much pain, because life, the assumption goes, is supposed to be good. It's supposed to be good. And when we talk about God being faithful, usually what we mean is that God is helping my life run smoothly. Oh, he's faithful. Good things are happening to me, therefore God is faithful. We use that. We describe God that way. How things going? They're really good. God is faithful. Oh, because he's not when things are going bad? Really? See, it's so easy for us to slip into this. I've told people, they're like, how things going to be? Right now things are going really good. God is faithful. I'm like, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? How come nobody's calling me out on this? How come nobody's saying, really, he's not faithful when things are going bad? It's only faithful when things are going good, because you've bought into this idea that life must work better so I can feel better. And sometimes it's just easier being happy with these lesser dreams. You've all heard this story about a guy, he was being picked on by a bully when he was younger, and the bully used to come and steal his lunch money. And so, stealing his lunch money every day, he got sick of it. And so he decided he was going to learn to protect himself. And so he started taking karate lessons. All right, so now he's going to get tough. He's going to fix this problem. He's going to stand up for himself. And this is a good thing. We all are very happy with this until he finds out that the karate instructor is going to charge $5 a lesson. So he decides it's better to just go back and pay the bully. It's just cheaper. See, sometimes it's easier to pay the bully than to fight. And we often decide that it's easier to embrace our lesser dreams than to enter more deeply and more fully and completely into God, abandoning ourselves to him, where the greater dreams may become our reality. But no one here is a bad fig, right? We're not bad figs, we're good figs. So turn to the person next to you and say, you're a good fig. You're a good fig. You're a good fig. You're a good fig, and God likes good figs. Jesus liked figs. This is a good thing. You're a good fig. Because the good figs, if you look at verse 6, they understand, my eyes will watch over them for their good. I will bring them back to this land. I will build them up and not tear them down. I will plant them and not uproot them. I will give them a heart to know me so that I am the Lord. They will be my people and I will be their God, and they will return to me with all their hearts. You see, the good figs, they accept God's actions. They embrace their shattered dreams. They experience the depth of loss on those lesser dreams. The resulting heartache and the shuffling of the heart's priorities they enter into. When God is tearing down these lesser dreams and the heart's priorities must be reordered. They enter in, the good figs, they see this. They enter in with a sense of faith and trust and confidence in God. They enter into that more fully and completely. So you know what the bad figs are? The bad figs are happy people. They're happy people. Good figs may not be. They may not be happy. They may not experience a great deal of it, but they will be increasingly joy-filled. There's a world of difference between these. They'll be increasingly joy-filled. We love the chronological Bible shines in this area, by the way. I can't really delve into it too much this morning, but at this point in the story, when you're reading through, they throw the story of Daniel in here, because Daniel, of course, is one of the exiles. Daniel would have thought the same thing. He and his friends would have thought their exile was a terrible thing, that all their great plans were being shattered, but they all turned out to be lesser plans for Daniel and his friends. Great things were in store for him and for the people and for the kingdom of God and the work that God was doing in their midst, and he was going to do it in exile. In Babylon. The chronological Bible drops the story of Daniel right in here because that's when it actually happened. And he's almost a case study for us of a good fig, of a guy who's able to say, no matter what God brings my way, I will trust in him and I will walk with him. And then we begin to see in Daniel's life the outworking of this and the great good that ended up happening because of Daniel's faithfulness in all of this. We read it earlier today in that passage that we started the service with. The plan that God has for us, the plan to prosper us and to do us good, to give us a new heart, similar to the language that we see here. You see, in Babylon, and often only in Babylon, is where our lesser dreams are deconstructed. It's where they're shattered. It's where our stubborn grip on the things of this life begins to loosen, where we cling to with such vigor, such energy. And it's in Babylon, in exile, where God begins to loosen that grip. He begins to teach and show us and prove to us the depth and the almost inscrutable ways that God will work in our midst. These shattered dreams, somehow, we all know that the shattered dreams create pain. That pain somehow will begin to weaken our grip on this life. Larry Crabb, he says it like this. I think I read it. Our fondest dreams for this life, the ones we believe are essential to our happiness, must be fully abandoned if we are to know God well. But we cannot abandon them without help. That the help we need is suffering. God's tool of choice, perhaps the only tool at his disposal in this way, is the pain of suffering. As God begins to tear down these lesser dreams so that we might develop somehow, mysteriously even, an appetite for the greater things. An appetite for the greater things. These greater dreams consist of us coming to a place of peace in the midst of our suffering. Joy despite not being happy. It is also the promise of God that we will inevitably one day have a permanent restoration of all good things, where there will be no more crying, there will be no more pain. It is a promise of an inevitable and a permanent restoration. And it is also the promise of a new heart that knows him, that responds to him, that experiences him. This is the new birth that we often will talk about. It's the fulfillment of the promise of the prophets, of this prophet here, that one day we would be given a new heart. Jesus, when he came, he said the same thing. You'll be given a new heart. I can give you that new heart. It's a new heart that rests confident in me despite life circumstances, despite the exile, despite being deported, despite being in Babylon, despite the destruction of your lesser dreams. It is a new heart that will cling to God first and foremost. Listen, when each of us needs to let God do this work, allowing him to shatter these lesser dreams of happiness so that we can enter into the greater dreams of joy in his presence. We all need to do this. Don't run to Egypt. Don't try to get away from what he is doing. Don't turn on him the moment you think he has turned on you. He hasn't. He is still doing some great good on your behalf. His plans are to prosper you, not in the ways you've thought, but in much better and deeper, more profound and more long-lasting, permanent ways. He is doing this great work. Don't try to minimize this pain and self-medicate it and try to surround yourselves with happy things so that you can have some sense of what you believe to be joy in this life, but isn't really anything but an anesthetic to numb the pain. Get past those things and trust in this God. Press deeper and deeper into him until he becomes your all in all, the center of it all, and nothing then will be able to shake, shatter, or destroy you in any way. You'll be able to see him in all areas of life when he becomes that central focus, that central thing, to have your heart, mind, soul, and strength dedicated fully and completely to him. God loves these good figs. May we be that more and more as we surrender our hearts to him. Let's pray. Lord, as we look through your word at things like this, we see these ancient prophecies, 2,500 years old or more. We know that you've been doing a work in the heart of humanity since the very beginning of time. We know that you, Lord, have seen what it is we really need. And that, Lord, you're willing to stop at nothing to bring us to that place of complete and utter dependence on you. You do it, Lord, because you desperately love us.